1342 UTC, a routine security update went live. Nothing dramatic, no big launch, no all-hands announcement, just a small change, one of hundreds that would normally pass unnoticed. And then, the internet started failing. Websites loaded into blank pages and error screens. Apps refused to connect. Businesses watched their dashboards go from normal to chaos. For a lot of users, it looked like the web itself had developed a pulse and then flatlined. Inside Cloudflare, alarms began stacking up in the worst possible way. Not one alert, but many. The kind of pattern that says, this isn't localized, this is global. If you've never thought about Cloudflare, that's kind of the point. They sit between you and the websites you visit, helping with performance, reliability, and protection. When things are working, you don't notice them. But if something goes wrong at that layer, you don't just lose one site, you lose everything that depends on it. That's what made this incident so unsettling. It didn't start as a hack, it started as a firewall rule. Specifically, Cloudflare's Web Application Firewall, or WAF, an automated system designed to block malicious traffic like cross-site scripting attacks. At 1342 UTC, an engineer deployed a minor change to WAF managed rules. It was an update meant to improve detection of inline JavaScript patterns used in attacks. And here, what's important. This was being deployed in a simulate first mode. That means it should only log suspicious matches, not block them. This lets Cloudflare measure false positives safely. So even if the rule was imperfect, it shouldn't have been catastrophic, except it was. 3 minutes later, the first page went out, then another, then many, many more. Synthetic tests started failing. End-to-end checks lit up like a Christmas tree. Traffic dropped. Teams around the world began reporting the same thing. CPU exhaustion everywhere. To the outside world, the symptom was simple. 502 bad gateway, but a 502 is almost insulting in its vagueness. It doesn't tell you why something is broken. It just says, I can't reach the thing behind me. Cloudflare's frontline servers still had enough CPU to answer requests, but they couldn't reach the worker processors that actually serve HTTP and HTTP's traffic. Why? Because those processes were pinned at nearly 100% CPU usage. At its worst, Cloudflare said traffic dropped by up to 82%. And in those first few minutes, there was a terrifying possibility floating through the room. What if this is an attack we've even never seen before? By 1400 UTC, just 18 minutes into the event, teams isolated the culprit, the WAF. It wasn't a DDoS attack. It wasn't a new zero-day exploit wave. The firewall itself was choking the system, and the reason it was choking is the kind of thing that feels impossible until you've seen it happen. A single rule contained a regular expression, a pattern matcher, that could backtrack so aggressively it consumed massive amounts of CPU time. Cloudflare later published the exact expression, and it looks like the keyboard fell down the stairs. But you don't need to read it to understand what went wrong. Here's the simplest way to picture catastrophic backtracking. Imagine you're trying to solve a maze. The Regex engine keeps choosing paths, hitting dead ends, backing up, and trying again. Now, imagine the maze is designed in a way where the number of possible paths explodes. Not linearly, exponentially. So for some inputs, the engine doesn't take milliseconds to find a match. It takes forever. And forever on a server means 100% CPU usage, leaving no capacity left for real users. This is basically a self-inflicted denial of service caused by pattern matching. This raises a huge question. Why did it take 27 minutes to fix? At 1402 UTC, the team discussed using a global terminator, a kill switch that could disable the WAF worldwide and instantly drop CPU back to normal. But there was a problem that makes this story feel like a movie. Cloudflare uses its own products internally, a practice they call eating your own dog food. And during the outage, their internal access systems were impacted, making it harder to authenticate into the control tools needed to flip the switch quickly. So while the internet was on fire, the fire extinguisher cabinet was metaphorically behind a locked door that they couldn't open. That delay matters, because once you know what's happening, the only goal is speed. Stop the bleeding first, ask questions later. At 1409 UTC, Cloudflare finally executed the global termination on WAF managed rule sets. CPU usage dropped back to normal. Traffic began returning. The web collectively exhaled. From the outside, that's the part people remember. Cloudflare went down for 27 minutes. But the inside story didn't end there. They didn't just want to bring things back up. They wanted to be absolutely sure they understood what had happened and that the fix really fixed it. To do this, Cloudflare did careful rollback testing in a single data center, using a subset of traffic before restoring the WAF globally. This is the careful, methodical work that happens after the public panic subsides. Finally, at 1452 UTC, WAF managed rule sets were re-enabled across the entire network. The crisis was officially over. This is what makes the story so haunting and so educational. The WAF rule wasn't supposed to block anything. It was supposed to observe. But even observation can be dangerous at scale. In a system like this, just checking every request means you're running that pattern matcher constantly across huge volumes of traffic. The real villain here isn't Regex as a technology. It's the combination of three things. A pattern that can backtrack catastrophically, deployed globally in the critical path of basically everything. One line of logic became a global bottleneck. So the next time you see a bland little 502 page, remember, sometimes the internet isn't under attack. Sometimes it's not a hacker. Sometimes it's not even a bug in the usual sense. Sometimes it's just one pattern matcher trying too hard for too long. If you want more true tech mysteries told like this, outages, breaches, and the tiny decisions that can change humanity, subscribe because the internet has a lot of ghosts and most of them are human-made. Thanks for watching.